having a great day out there. We want to thank you so much for joining us and spending part of it here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph Short and Tim Short, the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find out more about them at welcomehomefp.com. You can also give a call, 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. Just by listening to the show today, you're showing that you're taking your retirement planning, your retirement outlook seriously. The next step, of course, is letting them put together that customized retirement roadmap, put pen to paper for you. So once again, welcomehomefp.com or 804-635-3550. Today on the show, we're going to talk about having regrets in retirement. But before we dive into that, let me check in. Ralph and Tim, I'm glad to be with you once again. How you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Great. Doing great.
Doing well, thank you. Getting ready to enjoy my son's school year. It's hard to wrap around, is already getting ready to wrap up. So starting to plan for summer and all the adventures that will entail and all the financial costs that will entail. In retirement, every day is Saturday, every day is summer. There's a lot of adventures, a lot of planning in there, and there are going to be some costs in there. Maybe not some as consistent and static, but you guys creating that plan to help people get to, through, and beyond retirement to navigate and make sure that they don't have to do that one thing that I think most people don't want to do, and that is unretire. So appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners and give them a little bit of insight here. Speaking of not having to unretire, it really depends on how much you're pulling out each year, right? And Bill Bengen created the 4% rule in the 1990s. He said if the market averages 9% and you take 4% every year in retirement, well, you're never going to run out of money. But in his new book, A Richer Retirement, he revised this rule to say 4.7% is probably okay. Here he is on the Decoding Retirement podcast on Yahoo Finance.
The 4% rule, 4.7% rule is designed to be a worst case scenario. If you take out at that low rate and you don't meet those worst case situations, the money's just going to pile up during retirement. And probably later in retirement, you're going to have some regrets, wondering whether you should have and could have spent more.
If you don't meet those worst case requirements is what he's saying. And here's the thing, average returns are on actual returns. And so sometimes that might not necessarily be the most beneficial thing. Do you guys subscribe to that percentage pull on your money? And if not, why not?
Well, I think not everybody's in the same situation, right? It really depends on what the income is that you actually need. So I don't, buy in on these rules of thumb and 4% rule. And I think somebody else came out with, I think it was Dave Ramsey, said something about 8%. And, it all depends on what the market returns look like. And guess what, Chris? We have no idea what they're going to look like year in and year out. And I think what it's important to make sure that you've got a plan and not just say, okay, hey, I've got $1 million. So according to this worst case scenario, I can pull out $40,000 a year. I'm not buying into that, right? Because if the market drops like it did in 2008, you're going to lose quite a bit of money. So maybe, if we don't have a quick or sharp enough rebound, you might end up running out because a lot of people think, hey, if I lose 20%, I just have to earn 20%. Well, that's not true because you're going to earn 20% off a lower number. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take you a lot more to get back to where you're at. So each individual is going to be different. I'm not buying into a rule of thumb for everybody across the board. Some people, the 4% or 4.7% or maybe even the 8% could potentially work. But it's just dependent on their spending habits and what income that they need. Because what we find out quite a bit is that there's some high income earners that can't cut off the leaky faucet, if you will. And, they're just going to keep on spending like they're still working. So, it's very important to make sure that you've got a plan for your retirement income, because when you hit retirement, that's what it's all about at this point, is your income and not necessarily riding a roller coaster with the stock market or what have you.
The other thing I would say to most people is the fact that there are changes that will happen in retirement that we probably did not plan for. I mean, Chris, when you're 65 years old and you're in pretty good health, by the time you're 75, guess what? I know you're so young you can't understand this, but your health might change a little bit. Mm-hmm. And just so you'll know, medical expenses might take a big dip out of your income that you were talking about. So you just can't plan for every consequences that might occur to you in lifetime. So these rules of thumb, that's good for just a general situation, but that does not mean it's set in stone. It's not going to work for everybody, because we've got some people that they might need $1,000 a month to live off of. And then we have other clients that, like Tim said, they don't know how to stop the spending. So they're still spending 10 grand a month like they're still working. So you just don't know what you would need unless you have a plan. Without a plan, you're just flying blind. I mean, how many times would you want to get an airplane if you knew the pilot was blind? I don't think you probably would.
I got an answer for that. Never.
So, those are just kind of say, hey, let's take a look at it, see how it looks. But guess what? Your expenses, your income is completely different than your neighbors. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this. Do you want to have the same kind of retirement that everybody else has? I don't think so. Everybody's an individual. Let's base income strategy on what it is that you need, not your neighbors, not the government, just you. And speaking of the government, guess what? You have to worry about taxes too when you start taking money out of these accounts. So that's not, some people don't like to think about. Well, I don't think anybody likes to think about it, but those are issues that you have to incorporate into your income plan, whether you like it or not. Those are just things that happen, and you kind of have to deal with that. So,
yeah, you bring up a good point. We've said it before, is that there's a lot of folks that don't really understand the tax implications of what they've done during, their working career. And I think it's important to point out that, hey, everyone listening, that it doesn't matter what age you are. If you've got taxable income, you're going to pay taxes. And, I met with a lady a few weeks ago that did well saving, and it's all pre-tax. And we started talking about some tax strategies. She goes, wait a minute, I still have to pay taxes, even though I think she was 71, if I'm not mistaken. And I go, yeah, absolutely, because if you have taxable income, you're going to have to pay some taxes. So, it's important to, incorporate almost every factor you can think of in your retirement plan. And, we meet with a lot of people that say, hey, I'm not going to need to touch this money. I don't really necessarily care what the stock market's doing. It'll come back. I'm going to pass it on to my kids. Well, you can't say that, right? I mean, you could potentially have $10,000, $12,000 a month coming into you. But if, health comes up, like that was just talking about, what if you have a massive stroke and now you're in the ICU, which, prospective clients recently just had that happen, then what? You probably are going to have to pull some money out. So, there's a lot of things that come into it. It's not just riding a roller coaster or flying blind or, hopping on that plane with the blind pilot. We want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, I think the other thing, too, a lot of people don't realize, I mean, when we talk about health might change, you might have to go into a nursing home. What are those costs going to be like? People will come in here that thought they had a good plan. They bought a long-term care program back in the 80s, and they thought that this $500 or $1,000 a month would cover those costs. Well, that you may have a long-term care insurance policy, but $500 to $1,000 a month, that's probably not even going to pay your pills, your prescriptions in a nursing home. So, people come in and say, it's costing me $8,000 to $10,000 a month at these places. And I'm like, yeah, that's the way it is. So you have to be prepared to plan for that. And, it's good to think about worrying about not taking the money out of your account, but eventually you're going to have to. And the longer you wait to take some of this money out, probably the more that you're going to be required to take out if your account has been growing. So those are all things to consider. But as far as a rule that you need to live by, those are just generalizations, and it's a good way just to kind of think about it, but it's not a way that I would recommend that you need to plan your future.
And honestly, those rules of thumb, they're a good place to start, a good place to kind of base your plan off of, but then really having something customized to you. Think about it when you're car shopping. You're going to look at different models out there, and then the first thing you kind of look at is the stock model. Most people don't end up with the stock model. They want this or that, and then it's customized to them. That is what happens when you get a proper retirement plan, a proper retirement strategy. That is what you get with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, as a plan custom suited for you, not your neighbors, not for Ralph, not for Tim in particular, but what's going to work best for you. Because at the end of the day, what's more important when it comes to your own retirement? Now, this conversation may have been a little bit eye-opening to you as far as I didn't realize I was going to have to take taxes or, whatever in retirement, or I didn't take into account healthcare. It's not to say you did anything wrong thus far in your planning. Right now, again, just by listening, you're showing you're taking the first step. But now, how do you make it work? How do you course correct, or how do you make sure that doesn't become something that undoes your retirement? Well, pick up the phone, schedule a time, complimentary time to speak with Ralph and Tim, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. That number is 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550, or you can go online to the website, welcomehomefp.com. Find out more about Ralph and Tim, the entire team. Set up a time to speak with them there as well. welcomehomefp.com. Men are very loyal to the people who cut their hair. There was a recent study by Capital Hair and Beauty that reveals that 60% of men stick with the same barber for years. But something can always happen, like a bad haircut, that can strain a relationship. Let's talk about financial advisors here. Many clients are loyal to them for years until something happens. What are the signs, guys, that it might be time to consider changing financial advisors? And what have you seen that would prompt someone to make that switch?
Well, I love this question because I will tell you with all certainty that I am 100% loyal to my barber. Of course, people can't see what the top of my head looks like right now, but there's not a whole lot of hair there, so I take care of it myself. So that's why I say I'm loyal.
Be loyal to yourself. That's important. Yeah.
To my barber. So, but yeah, I think, we're kind of living in the age of, there's not a whole lot of loyalty anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's different, reasons for that, but I think a lot of people, once they get to a point of, hey, I've lost X amount of dollars, or hey, the stock market's not doing well, and I haven't heard from my guy, what can you do for me? I think that's really one of the biggest signs of, it's not always getting through the good times, because the good times are good, right? But when it comes to the bad times and how you adjust, how do you pivot, how do you restructure, if you will? And I think that's where a lot of people get kind of anxious when things aren't going well, or, we've seen it quite a bit where some of the big box firms, right, they kind of blow through. There's a whole lot of turnover, so it's, when you go out and you shop for an advisor, you got to trust them, right? Mm-hmm. And that takes a little bit of time. And if you say, okay, hey, I've been in conversation with John Smith for the last 2 years. Now I finally feel like I want him to manage my portfolio. I feel like, he's got my best interest at heart. And now John Smith, a year after you've committed to him, is now gone. Then you kind of have to relearn the next person in line. And, we've seen it a lot to where that doesn't make people happy. It doesn't make them comfortable because they're dating all over again. And, they felt like they got married, and now in a year's time, they've now got divorced. So I think, like for us, you're not going to see a whole lot of crazy turnover. There's a lot of things that we do differently than some of the big box firms, but we're always available through the good times, through the bad times. And I think with a lot of people, when bad times hit, that's when they get nervous and anxious. And I think the loyalty kind of breaks.
And I think the biggest issue for most people when we sit down and talk to them, you have to have conversations. Some of the conversations are easy because of the good times. If you're earning 10 to 20% back on your investments and stuff, hey, that's a pretty good, easy conversation to have. But when you have such volatility and you lost 20% in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we kind of have to hold their hands and talk them off the ledge about doing something that they shouldn't. Just because the market goes down doesn't mean that the investments that you got are, improper for you. It just means that the value of it went down. But a lot of people don't like to have that conversation. They don't return phone calls. They don't want to explain what's going on. I wish I could tell you I knew exactly what the stock market was going to do tomorrow. But guess what? I do not know that, and I profess not to know that. A lot of people say, oh, we got the best thing since sliced bread. Well, how do you know that? It's just you have to be comfortable with who you're dealing with. You have to let them understand what you're trying to do. And if you don't do that, you don't just necessarily blame the advisor. You can blame them for not calling you back, not explaining certain things or questions that you have, because people that invest money, it's a very personal thing. Mm-hmm. It's not just, let me just write you $100,000 check and you do whatever you want. Oh yeah, we got people that will do that and say that, but when things start to go south, they'll be the first one to call you and say, why did we do this? So but we have to pick up the phone. We have to answer those tough questions. And we have no control over what the stock market does. The only thing that we've got control over is how we can help you do the things that you want to do and get those things done. So it's just, you have to understand that our job is to help you. It's not for us to tell you what you need to do. Our job is to find out what it is you're trying to do. Is it the right amount of risk? Is it your income plan, or is it a long-term growth plan? Those are all issues we sit down and talk to people about, because it is not just, oh man, we got a template here. We're going to give you this no matter who comes in the door. No, it's personalized. It's about you and only you. Would you not agree with him?
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point, the difference between like planning and investing, right? So there's a lot of advisors out there that are really good at investing and they're good at finding that next hot stock. Well, guess what? That's not the planning piece. And, we talked about like accumulation versus distribution and, retirement versus building your wealth. There's a lot of things that come into that, but you've got to really focus in on what you're trying to accomplish. And, 30 years ago, if you went to an advisor and said, hey, I want to give you $100,000, he's probably going to sell you a mutual fund and then that's it, right? You probably never hear from him again. And I think that's what a lot of people anticipate when they go to see somebody or start the dating process, if you will, of the advisor. They're kind of concerned as far as what's going to happen because there's horror stories out there. There could be past bad experiences too. So it's important to be comfortable. And, we just had our Flying Squirrels event, the baseball game this past week, and another great event. But that is, one of those other touches of, coming out, it's a family atmosphere. I think we had north of 50 people come in. And it was a great time, right? But those are things that a lot of the big box firms won't do and can't do because there's so many different things out there. So once again, you've got to be comfortable with that person through the good and through the bad. And that's where, it's not, bad times aren't going to last, but, the tough people will. So that's why you've got to make sure that you've got the right fit and make sure that, hey, when times are bad, nobody's running scared or got their head buried in the sand. Have those tough conversations.
And I think a lot of people, they need to understand as a financial advisor for over 45 years, one of those things that we have to deal with is it gets very personal. Things happen to our clients, whether it's health issues, whether it's going through divorce, how should it handle these different things. And we've seen a lot, so we can help them understand what they're having to go through or even like in the 80s when adult kids are having to go back to living with their parents because, they lost their job and things of that nature. Life's going to happen to everybody. You're going to need to have somebody, as I tell some people that sometimes feel like I'm a financial psychiatrist, I need a couch in my office just to help people understand what they're going through. But, the number of people that will come in and ask questions that you wouldn't think that they would of a financial advisor, like, okay, my son is thinking about, starting his own business, and he wants to borrow $400,000 from my 401k. What should I do? And I look at him like, well, it's your money. You can do what you want, but this is what's going to happen. You take out that kind of money from your 401k, you probably going to have to take out $600 just because that's the tax burden that's going to be placed on you. So those are all things that we sit down and talk to people about. And it's just not about the money. It's about what should I do? I mean,
So let me throw you a question.
Okay.
So what if you had a client that said, hey, I just built my retirement home and now my son wants to move back in? What would you say to that?
I would say you need to probably think again because it's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. But anyway, those are all issues that as a financial advisor, it's just not about the money. It's about trying to build your lifestyle, trying to get you where you want to be in the most financially sound and stable way.
The dating analogy there, Tim, actually, I feel like probably isn't that far off because when we're talking about getting through retirement, it's, or the retirement period, it is a 15, 20, perhaps even longer, time horizon. And if you're working with the same advisor through that is a relationship, might be one of the longest relationships you've ever had, aside from your marriage or your family relations. But I think it's important if you're going to have a relationship for that long, and even the 5 years leading up to retirement or what have you, that you trust the people that you're working with. I think that is paramount. You should do that. And if it is just you call on the phone and you don't know which agent you're going to get on the phone, that can be kind of difficult to establish that trust. I think a common reason that people want to switch, whether it is from a barber or a financial advisor or really anyone that you're using, is a neglect or a lack of listening. And in light of what we've experienced, in the past month, a lot of volatility. And if you've been uncertain about it and you've reached out to people, you've reached out to your financial advisor and, they were hard to get in touch with, or they were kind of flippant about the answer, or, just impossible to get in touch with, maybe it's time to look and have a conversation elsewhere. I know that is a difficult thing. It's what's the adage? The devil, people, they have that fear that, if I go somewhere else, it could be much worse. That's the importance. That's the power of that second opinion is having those conversations and showing, maybe there are changes that need to be made. And you guys as fiduciaries, it means sometimes you have the tough conversations, right? You're not necessarily telling people the things that they want to hear, but the things that they need to hear if changes need to be made or if there are problems on the horizon.
Oh, for sure. And, we've had numerous conversations of talking to certain clients or prospective clients and asking them, hey, what is the deal with this overall spending, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes we're going to have to stop doing, $3,000 a month toward Amazon and not being up on Amazon, but we're all kind of victims to a point. It's all about having those tough conversations. But what we've found out in the past, is people not necessarily understanding what is going on, right? How many times has somebody come in and brought in statements, say, well, this is what they're doing. Okay, well, walk me through this. And, well, I don't know. This is why I brought the statements in, because I don't know what they're charging me. They're not super clear about their fees. They haven't given me documentation on that. There's a lot of things that is incorporated with that. I met with a lady a few weeks ago, and her parents left her a good sum of money. And come to find out, it was all pre-tax, and the advisor that she went to told her just go ahead and cash it out, and they could go ahead and reinvest it. So she had a huge tax hit, which she wasn't aware of it. And that's one of those things that, there's some folks out there that are looking at their bottom line and not your bottom line. And that's why you got to make sure that you got the fiduciary team in your corner.
And I would say to a lot of people, when we sit down and first meet with them, one of the things I do ask them is, what are you looking for in a financial advisor? And they kind of look at me like, well, I never thought about it like that. And I said, well, that's something that you need to have a good idea on what you're looking for. If you're looking for just an investment advisor, or are you looking for somebody that can help you guide you through your retirement years, then that's a big difference. And, a lot of people say, well, I'm looking for somebody that's trustworthy, honest. I mean, those are all traits that you definitely need to have. But also, you need to understand that they want to help you if they're the right fit. Maybe not everybody's the right fit for you because you've got special needs. I mean, if you have a child that has special needs and you know that you need to prepare for him when you're no longer here, there's certain things that you need to be considering it, than just a regular investment account. So those are all things. It's just not about investment. It's not about retirement plan. It's about life planning. It's about what's going to happen to you. Where do you want this money to go? I mean, have a lady that came in and she's single, she doesn't have any kids, no relatives, and she's got over $7.5 million, and she says, what am I supposed to do with this now? And I'm like, well, I mean, you can adopt some of us, around the table here. But, it's just things like that most advisors, they don't have a clue what to answer. I mean, they can tell you what the alphas and betas of their coefficients and all this stuff, but most people want to understand when you talk to them, how is this going to help me? It's not about understanding every nook and cranny of every investment or every annuity or whatever. It's about, here's what I'm trying to do. Will this work for me? And that's why we try and sit down with them and let them have a good understanding. They may not understand every aspect of it, but unless you have a general basic knowledge of what you're trying to do, nobody can help you.
Ralph, in all the time we've been working together, I don't think I've ever heard you say alphas and betas and coefficients. And I think that's actually a good thing, because when you're speaking with clients, when you're speaking here on the radio and on TV, you're not talking above people. You're not dazzling them with the terminology. You're speaking to them in a manner they can understand, because that's what people also want in a relationship, is being able to understand, why are we doing this, X, Y, and Z. And that comes down to the trust and that relationship that you can build. So if you aren't entirely sure about, your financial professionals right now, or if you don't have a financial professional in your corner, why not pick up the phone, set up a time, complimentary time, no cost, no obligation, to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, whether it is coming into their office, just having that phone call, attending the First Friday events. I know that one the one for May just passed by, but attending those in a more informal setting. Encourage you to have that conversation and begin that process. 804-635-3550 is the number. It's 804-635-3550, or you can go online to the website, set up a time there as well, welcomehomefp.com. As always, we appreciate you joining us, spending part of the day here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Hope you stay safe out there. Gentlemen, appreciate the time as always. And as we wrap up, I do want to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and we appreciate your time as well. But we've talked a lot about of uncertainty and a whole lot of change going on, estate planning, Roth conversions. These things are very important and can be very important for your retirement plan. So, if anything you heard today kind of struck a nerve, if you will, give us a call. We'd love to see what kind of value we can provide for you. We bring you into the office and we can create your very own retirement roadmap. But pick up the phone, give us a call, visit the website, attend one of the First Friday events. We'd love the opportunity to meet with you. So we want to thank everybody for listening and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.